There are some WNBA players that are now voicing their opinions on the melee, like Marina Mabrey cheap shot that happened during the Fever Connecticut Sun game, and you might be surprised to know what they think. Okay, so Courtney Williams and Natasha Hiedeman, they have their own like Twitch live stream that they do. They bring in a bunch of players from the league, they watch games, they ask questions. It's just kind of like a fun hangout that they developed like, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago at the most. And it's grown really fast because they are kind of funny. They're very known for the camaraderie and like good times. And they do talk about like current events that have been happening. They talk about like the standings and what they think about the new teams. And as it so happens, pretty much 90% of the current events that have been going on in the WNBA have been revolving around the Fever Connecticut Sun game. Shocker. And I gotta say, Courtney Williams is a real one. She tells it like it is. She doesn't kind of blow smoke up anybody's you know what? And she has always been pretty amazed by what Caitlin Clark has done in the league, no matter what happens around her. She has been one of my favorite personalities in the WNBA too. She's just kind of always smiling. I kind of love it. Anyway, they did a reaction to the eye poke incident and what Marina Mabrey did afterwards. And mind you, Courtney Williams and Marina Mabrey are kind of buds, but listen to what they had to say about it.
Look at Mabrey.
Cooler edge prevailed.
Hey.
He was up 10 at this point.
Hey, we would have been crashing out our team.
And if you don't know what crashing out means, it means they would have been like having a fit at what happened. Anyway, let's move on.
Courtney, if somebody ever tackles you like that,
nobody would ever tackle me like that. They would play with Bridget like that, and then we would have to like take it up there.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
But I'm just saying.
Nobody would ever play with me like
if that ever happened, you better crash out behind me, because I'm crashing out behind you. We can share the same jail cell. Yeah, bro.
Oh my gosh, bro. Our team would crash, bro, because they would play with somebody that's like not even like it would be like they would do that to like Bridget or like, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like, bro, stop fucking playing with Bridget like that before we run down on some shit.
Face. Walk down.
So yeah. Enforcers, like these are what enforcers are. And there's so many people talking about how the WNBA doesn't need enforcers. And I don't know, I think they have like a skewed version of basketball or something, or a new version of basketball that they just want to see like manifest from the WNBA that has not been played in the previous like iterations of the NBA or the WNBA even like ever. Because if anybody knows Diana Taurasi is known for her physical play. Sophie Cunningham talks about how Diana Taurasi took her under her wing. And, you know, Sophie Cunningham, we all know her fiery spirit. We all know how, like, chippy she can be on the court. And I think that Diana Taurasi maybe showed Sophie Cunningham that it is okay to stick up for yourself. It's okay to stick up for your teammates. And obviously, at the very end of the game, with you know, going into the game thinking the same things that Courtney Williams and Natasha Hiedeman were thinking, like, hey, you mess with my teammate, we're gonna mess with you. That's like a loyalty, and that is what teams very much like. That is the foundation of so much camaraderie in team sports. Especially in a game as physical as basketball or a game as physical as football. I mean, football is like not really the best, you know, comparison because it's like nothing but physicality. But in a team like basketball, there is going to be physicality. And if, you know, you do see something extra happen and you don't see the referees like tempering that, then yeah, obviously your teammates are going to have your back. And in the past few days, the officiating has just grown in conversation, grown in debates. Rebecca Lobo, she goes on a podcast, talks about it herself. And God bless Rebecca Lobo, because she is always looking at both sides of the scenario. And I gotta say, it is something that I definitely relate to myself, especially after having worked in big industry or big marketing things where you do kind of have to not release all the information. So a lot of people create assumptions. Anyway, Rebecca Lobo has always kind of been a real one herself, going a little bit against the grain of what the old WNBA guard kind of has been saying. And we all know what the old WNBA guard has kind of been up to regarding a lot of the Indiana Fever movement, a lot of the Caitlin Clark movement. But the thing is like, I truly believe that that is just getting filtered out little by little. When you look at people like Cheryl Swoops, she used to call games for I think it was the Dallas Wings, not calling games for the Dallas Wings anymore. There's a lot of people in the old guard media who have not been given or like given scoops to stories because of their stance on how they aren't exactly liking the direction the WNBA is going in. But listen, like, the direction the WNBA is going in, you got to look at these bottom lines. And we all know what those bottom lines are. I don't even have to go through them here anymore. But let's take a look at what Rebecca Lobo says about the officiating. And I'm telling you, Rebecca Lobo commenting on this on the platform that she has, this is saying something big, and that change could really be happening, or at least looked at.
Well, I think you have to look at things a little bit holistically. I think Caitlin Clark is a really hard player to officiate, much like Diana Taurasi was throughout the course of her career, for a couple of reasons. Caitlin Clark regularly gets picked up in the full court. She also gets blitzed more over the course of her career than any player in WNBA history or in that period of time. And she also creates some contact herself on the offensive end of the floor. She is very difficult to officiate because of all of the contact that's happening around her all of the time. That being said, I was in contact with a number of WNBA coaches yesterday about this topic of the officiating in the WNBA, and all of them said it needs to get better, specifically the consistency, not only from one game to the next, but the consistency within a game. One coach told me, we tell our players to be as physical as they can possibly be for 40 minutes because we know for 38 of them, they're pretty much going to get away with it. So I think everybody would like to see a tighter whistle and a little bit more freedom of movement.
There is a lot of truth to the extra physicality that Caitlin Clark gets, because, I mean, if you just look at it logically, she gets double and triple teamed by more than anyone in the league. So let's just say there's one guard running down and then they catch her in the half court. She's not even being full court pressed. So being full court pressed adds an extra element of being fouled earlier. When you are guarded by 2-3 defenders, then that's 2-3 more times that you are able to be physically fouled, even though not all of the fouls are called. But like, what I'm saying is the bottom line is like, she's covered way more than any other player. She's scouted way more than any other player. So it just makes sense. But because of that, that's why the officiating around Caitlin Clark does need to be looked at a little harder. And she is right. There are many coaches that are willing to take these fines, calling out the officiating in the post-game press conferences. Just in this season, I remember Cheryl Reeve commenting on it about how physical they get with Nafisa Collier. I remember Stephanie White commenting on it twice. I remember, there's also Gabby Williams recently commented on it just the other day.
Thank you for asking. This is the second time where I'm attacking. It's very physical. I'm saying something to the ref, watch my landing space, watch physicality. I get laughed at, and it ends in my ankle getting turned. The same thing happened in Dallas, a flagrant that wasn't called. Same thing happened here. So my ankle is hanging in there, but it's starting to get very frustrating. I'm averaging less than 2 free throws a game, and I drive, like I'm physical. I'm not someone who's avoiding contact. So I just hope that the safety of players starts to become a priority versus the ego of refs.
And I actually remember watching the game when the Seattle Storm were playing the Dallas Wings, and Gabby Williams went up for a jumper, and Dejanay Carrington went up for the block. She landed in Gabby Williams' landing space. Gabby Williams kind of twisted her ankle, walked off the court for a while, and I do not for the life of me understand how that wasn't a flagrant foul. And yes, there has to be a balance between too much game stoppage, but protecting the players. And when you talk about protecting the players, you want to talk about the areas that are most dangerous. And putting yourself in whoever you're defending's landing space is called a reckless closeout for a reason, because feet, legs. These are very important things to basketball players, which is why I had called out JC Sheldon for diving towards Sydney Colson's legs. And I remember a lot of people had an issue that I had called this out as like a reckless move, but I'm telling you, like, you do not dive towards a player's legs, especially like with women with their propensity for ACL injuries. And that's why I felt like JC Sheldon's dive towards Sydney Colson's legs was reckless. I do know that there are some that disagree with me on that they call it a hustle play, but I think that there was a reckless element to it in the direction she dove for the ball. And you know, the players are going to stand up for themselves. Sophie Cunningham became like a hero overnight, outselling all her jerseys overnight, like overnight in all sizes, which is a much bigger statement to the petition that was created to remove Sophie Cunningham from the league, which the last time I had checked, it had I think 129 signatures. And the person that actually started the petition took the petition back and said, here's a petition to take down the petition to remove Sophie Cunningham from the league. This person, he or she, whatever, completely changed their stance, and that was actually pretty cool to see. Because Sophie Cunningham is definitely a hero for kind of like just taking a stance against how everyone seems to be feeling about the officiating these days. Steph White said it. She said, everything in this league is growing and everything in this league is getting better and the play is getting faster and the moves are getting harder. So the refereeing, the officiating really needs to grow with it. And it's super duper important because refereeing and officiating can determine outcomes of games. It can determine the health and player safety of everyone in the WNBA. So I back this campaign in uplifting and elevating the officiating in the league.